When I saw the scars on Barber Frank's hands, I froze, because those were the scars of someone who had done very dangerous things. But Frank was just an ordinary barber, wasn't he? Welcome to Iron Will Stories. Before I start telling this story, please let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and if you believe these kinds of stories should be remembered, hit the subscribe button to help keep these stories alive. My name is Mike Carter. I'm 34 years old, living in a small town, Millfield, Missouri, population 3,500, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. And I've been going to the same barber for 25 years. Frank Miller's shop is on Main Street, next to the old ice cream parlor. He's been there since 1987. My dad started taking me there when I was a kid. Frank was in his 40s then, with black hair. Now he's 68. His hair has turned white, but his hands are still steady. Frank was never much of a talker. "Morning, Mike, how do you want it?" he'd say. And I'd reply, "Same as always, Frank." That was it. For 25 years, we never broke this routine. But that day was different. November 3rd, 2023, Friday afternoon. When I walked into his shop, Frank was watching TV. The news channel was on. There was a documentary about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Frank was so absorbed in it that he didn't even notice me. "Frank?" I said. He snapped out of it like he was waking from a dream. He immediately turned off the TV. "Mike, I didn't see you come in. Sorry about that." I sat in the chair. Frank put on his apron and got to work. But something was off. His hands were trembling slightly. For 25 years, his hands had always been steady, reliable. That day was different. "Everything okay, Frank?" I asked. Yeah, just a little tired." As he worked on my hair, he was thinking about the news he'd been watching. There was something in his eyes. Sadness? Anger? I couldn't tell. "War is never easy," he said suddenly. "What did you say?" "Afghanistan, Iraq. It's never easy." This was something Frank never did, talk about politics or war. But that day was different. "Did you ever go to war, Frank?" I asked. He stopped, scissors in his hand, looking at my eyes in the mirror. "Long time ago," he said quietly. "A very long time ago." And that's when he dropped the razor. Frank never dropped anything. In 25 years, I'd never seen him make a clumsy move. He bent down to pick up the razor, and I bent down to help him. That's when I saw them. His hands. The deep white lines across his palms. The small, round marks on his knuckles. That characteristic dent on the side of his index finger. The thick, bumpy scar on his thumb. I recognized these marks, because my father had been in the military too. Delta Force. And my father had the same marks on his hands. Trigger finger calluses, grenade blast scars, knife fight cuts, operation wounds. Frank Miller wasn't just an ordinary barber. "Frank," I said, my voice shaking. He understood. He saw what I had recognized in my eyes. He picked up the razor and straightened up. He looked into my eyes through the mirror. "You never told anyone, did you, Mike?" "Tell anyone what?" "That you never mentioned any of this to anyone." "Frank, You've been coming here for 25 years. I've cut your hair for 25 years. You never asked questions. You never wondered. Why now?" My heart was pounding. "Because my father had the same marks," I said. Frank's face changed. He put down the scissors. "Your father?" "Delta Force, 1985 to 2003, retired Sergeant Major David Carter." Frank's eyes welled up. "David Carter. Dave Carter? Do you know him?" Frank sank into the chair. "Do I know him? Dave saved my life." And that day, Frank Miller told me his real story. He wasn't Frank Miller. His real name was Frank Morrison. Delta Force, 1975-1995. 20 years of active duty. Mogadishu, Panama, Gulf War, countless covert operations. 1993, Somalia, Black Hawk Down operation. Frank and his team were pinned down under enemy fire. They were trying to rescue wounded comrades. And that's when my father, Dave Carter's team, came to their rescue. "Your father carried me on his shoulders," Frank said. 2 kilometers, under enemy fire. I was bleeding out. I thought I was dead. But Dave didn't give up. "I'm not leaving you, Frank," he said. And he didn't. Frank's voice was trembling. "I was in the hospital for 3 months. Dave came every day. He never gave up. And he told me, 'Frank, when this war is over, you're going to live a normal life. You're going back to your family, and you're going to forget what you've been through.' So why did you become a barber?" "Because your father was right. After the war, I wanted a normal life, where no one would ask questions, where no one would know my past, just peace." Frank wiped his eyes. "I retired in 1995, changed my name, came here, and I've been running this shop for 28 years. No one knows my real identity. You're the first person." "Why did you tell me now?" "Because you're Dave's son, and I owe my life to Dave." When it came time to close the shop that day, Frank kept me in the back. "Mike, I have a favor to ask." "What is it?" "Is your father still alive?" "Yes, he's 73, retired but has some health issues. Could I see him?" The next week, I took Frank to see my father. For the first time in 28 years, they were together again. My father recognized Frank the moment he saw him. "Morrison, Frank Morrison." "Hello, Dave." And 2 old soldiers hugged each other. Both were crying. That day I learned that Frank wasn't just an ordinary barber. He was a hero. He had fought for his country, risked his life for his comrades, and then chose to live a quiet, humble life. My father said to Frank, "You were always a hero, Frank. Being a barber doesn't change that fact." Frank smiled. "Maybe so, Dave. Maybe so." Now when I go to Frank's, I'm not just a customer, I'm a family friend. And sometimes, very rarely, he tells me stories from those days, about his comrades, operations, how lives were saved. But mostly, he's still the same quiet Frank, with his scissors, his razor, his humble shop. And now I know that sometimes the greatest heroes come from the most ordinary-looking places. Frank Miller, our town's barber, but also one of our country's unsung heroes, and most importantly, my father's life-saving friend. This story taught me something. You never know what people around you have been through. That quiet neighbor, that ordinary-looking shop owner, that humble mechanic. Who knows what they've experienced, what sacrifices they've made. Frank Morrison is a real hero, and for 28 years, he's quietly carried this hidden heroism. Sometimes the traces of the past remain on our hands, and those traces tell the most beautiful stories. This story shows how extraordinary, seemingly ordinary people can actually be. There are thousands of hidden heroes like Frank Morrison among us. It's our responsibility to recognize them, learn their stories, and respect their past.